Okay, we're learning a little Nishmas Ruvin ben Yeshua, father of Shalom of our dear Rabbi Avi. It looks like he led a very interesting life based upon what you wrote. Really interesting life. A member of the Palmach, a smuggler of people. Very interesting life. These people live through history. You hear about it, and then you have people who actually did it. It's like very, very interesting. The Shamash and Aliyah. Okay, so we're up to Chaf Beis Amid Aleph, and we just saw a sugya. We're in the middle of a sugya of Atzitz Nakov. Atzitz Nakov. Now, an Atzitz Nakov we saw yesterday. If it's attacked, if it's Nakov, so when the male it's getting nutrients from the ground, so you be chayiv in Trumas and Meiser, whatever's in the pot. However, we said regarding the halacha of being mechuber le'inyan be considered an act of ketzitza, it considered an act of like 1 second. We saw by get, you need v'chasa v'nasan. You have to write the get and give it over. Late Rabbi Eliezer, and you can't have tzitza in the middle. Even Rabbi Meir would hold that also. The question is what's considered ksiva. He holds the chasima would be considered the ksiva, right? According to Rabbi Meir. So you wrote the get on an olashal zayis, right? Which is an olive leaf, which is in a flower pot that has a hole in it. Okay. So now, is it considered mechuber? We had machlokes. According to Abaya, no. Said Abaya, and the Ran said that the fact that you shuckle, you could take it. It's not an act of ketzitza, even though halachically I spoke out yesterday. Now I found that I have written on the side of my Gemara the Ran. Ran holds, even though it's connected mechuber in trumas and ma'isa, but since you could take it in one swoop, that's not an act of ketzitza. It's not a chassan in the chas of v'nasan. And Rabbi said we would go shema yaktan, that you're going to go ahead and you can go ahead and cut the leaf. Maybe you cut the leaf, you see that would be a problem. That would be a problem. Okay, so we're up to the second line of Chaf Beis Amid Aleph. So just the basic to understand the next sugya. We just go over something we're familiar with. We know that there are the chasim sheyesh lemachrayas, which is karka, the chasim she'ein lemachrayas, which is metaltalin. Achrayas means the karka is there to go ahead and be responsible for your loan. You're going to go ahead and lend the person money. Why would the bank give you collateral? Because they're going to take your house. They're going to take your karka. So it's yesh lemachrayas versus metaltalin, which is not there all the time. It comes and it goes. The kinyanim we know for karka, kesef, shtar, and chazaka. Right? Kesef, shtar, and chazaka. That's the way you coin a karka. Chazaka you would go ahead and work the ground. You'd open a gate. There's different ways the Gemara describes what chazaka is. In fact, an Evet Kanani who is hukish lekarka also would be acquired with kesef, shtar, and chazaka. Well, midoraisa, we said that now by the taltalin, midoraisa kesef should also work. But we said shem and this of chitav aliyah, you may make a deal with a guy, and it's in he gives you the money, but he hasn't transferred to your jurisdiction, and then a fire breaks out, he's not going to bother saving it because it's not his anymore. So the goes is that you have to go ahead and do some form an act. That act could be mashicha, that's the most common one. The mashach from his rishus to your rishus, masira on the larger animal, hagbah, and different ways to go ahead and acquire. So that for our, those are the two kinyanim we have to focus on is mashicha and by metaltalin and chazaka by shtar. That's by karka. So it says the Gemara, atzitz shel echad. The atzitz belongs to one individual. V'zroyim shel acher, and the zroyim belongs to another individual. Now the atzitz guys, we're going to view as metaltalin. And we're going to view this royim as karka. Good. So macha bal atzitz lebal zeroyim. If the bal atzitz, the one who owns the metaltalin, sells to the bal zeroyim, he sells to what, to the right kima shem mashach kana. Once he's mashach it, he's kana, because again he is acquiring the atzitz, the metaltalin. So the kinyan, the proper kinyan would be the act of mashicha. So once the bal zeroyim who owns the karka is, I'm putting in the term, would go ahead and draw it into his jurisdiction, that would be kaina. Macha bal zroyim bal atzitz. However, if the bal zroyim, the one who owns the metaltalin, is selling his metaltalin, his zroyim, the bal atzitz, to the one who owns the atzitz, so the karka is selling it to the bal atzitz, the one who owns the metaltalin, like kana, ad sheyachzik bis zroyim. He wouldn't be kaina until he's machzik in this royim. He does an act of chazaka in this royim, because again, the royim is karka, and as we just saw, the karka is nikna b'keseb chazaka. So again, the metaltalin is nikna al yidei meshicha pulling, and the karka, which is the zroyim in this instance, is nikna al yidei chazaka. This makes a lot of sense, correct? Good. Atzitz v'zroyim shel echad. Let's say the atzitz and the royim belong to one individual, umachron la'acher, and then the acher goes ahead and you sell both. So he's selling both. Now, if you're selling both, but you need two kinyanim, fellas, right? You need what's a kinyan in the kinyan in the karka, and a kinyan in this royim, and a kinyan in the atzitz in the metatlin. So we have a kinyan called kinyan agav. We have a kinyan called kinyan agav, where if you're koina the karka, you could schlep along the metatlin along with it. And that's the discussion, and that's what Mara is going to say right now.
If there's a field and there's corn growing in the field, and I buy the field, why would they have a meeting to make a separate opinion on the corn?
Well, if it's mechuba to the karka, mechuba karka could be considered karka. Mechuba karka could be considered karka. But over here, we're saying that it's not the utzitz is you're right. This royim is karka. It's attached to the ground. It's the utzitz that's not. It's the utzitz. It's the flower pot that's the metaltalin. So over here, if you make a kinyan in this royim, it would help for the utzitz, right? In your case is you understand?
Yeah.
Okay, now again, we're going to see this better in kedushin. The main sugi is in Masech the kedushin. This kinyan agav, we're familiar with it already. So now, you're selling an utzitz is royim. You're selling to one person owns both, and he's selling to another person. Hichzik bizroyim. He makes a kinyan of chazak in this royim. Kana utzitz. And he doesn't have to make a kinyan in the atzitz. Why? Right? So therefore, in your case, Rabbi, you would not have to go ahead and make a kinyan in the corn. Why? Because you kind of agav the karka. But if it's attached to the karka, might be the bigger chiddush would be if it was cut. Okay. Right? It would be a bushels. And the Gemara has a shaila whether you need sibur and b'seichu or not. When you make the kinyan, do you need the metaltalin to be what? Or you can be metaltalin. If I make a kinyan chazaka in Detroit and I have metaltalin, I'm recording in Chicago, or do I need it in Detroit in the same place? That's we need sibur, maybe seichu. Okay, anyway, that's a discussion in the Gemara. Okay, so now again, this seems to be a little pashut over here, right? So you make a kinyan chazaka in this royim, and you're going to be kind of the utzitz, which is metaltalin. And that's why we learn in Masech the kedushin the chasam shein lachrayis. The chasam shein lachrayis is metaltalin. Niknin is acquired in the chasam shein lachrayis. The kesef b'shtaru chazaka. Hichzik ba'atzitz. However, if you make a chazaka in the atzitz, guys, what would it then be then? Outside. Boy, don't look. You make a right. You make a kinyan chazaka in atzitz. So what's the din? You did nothing, right? You did nothing. Again, because you did the wrong kinyan on the karka. You went on the metaltalin. You did wrong kinyan metaltalin. So it says the Gemara, hichzik bi'atzitz, apatzitz like kana. If you're machzik in the atzitz, even the atzitz you're not kana. Actually, yachzik b'sroyim. Okay, so that's very geschmack. All straight all along. Now, nakfu ba'aretz, the nekev, the hole in the flower pot, is in Eretz Yisrael. So it's being nurtured by the nutrients of Eretz Yisrael. The noifai b'chutz la'aretz, and the knife and the branch is in chutz la'aretz. So is it chayiv in Shumas L'Maiser or not? In other words, is it considered part of Eretz Yisrael, or is it considered part of chutz la'aretz? Abaya Omar basa nikvay as linon. You can go after the nekev, you can go after the hole, and therefore it's going to be chayiv. It's Eretz Yisrael. Rav is of the opinion basa knife as linon. And Rabbi says you're going to go after the knife. You go after the knife. Says Rashi, "Basa nakvas leinon shem yishamu yoinik." And that's where it's getting its nutrients from. The chayiv b'maiser. And Rabbi says, "Basa nakvas leinon upatim min ha'maiser min ha'toira b'chutz la'aretz." In other words, midrabanan Rashi is telling you would have to give maiser, but it would only be derabanan. It would not be deraisa. Okay, now. Bid the ashrish says Rashi chutz l'nekev b'slech karka Eretz Yisrael. It's in other words, not only does it have a hole, but you have it already sprouted and it began to take root in Eretz Yisrael. fellas, until now we've been discussing where it had a hole, but there was no root. And that's why we said when you go ahead and by yesterday was, it was not an act of katsitsa when you went ahead and took it, even though it was a hole, correct? So bid the ashrish, when it took root, kulyamale pligi. Even Rava would be Maida that has a din of Eretz Yisrael. Even Rava would be Maida, it has a din of Eretz Yisrael. Ki pligi, when would they argue? Bidlay ashrish, when it doesn't take root. Right? I mean, it doesn't take root. So therefore, it's just a hole, it doesn't take root, and therefore that's where the machlokes is. Okay. Try the Gemara ubi the ashrish lay pligi. Are they not arguing by the ashrish? But Tanan, okay, this is let's do this outside, guys. This is the Mishnah in the last parak in Bab Mitzia, Abayis Valiyah. So you have two gardens. One is over here and one is over here. Right? One is over here and one is over here. Underneath my right hand view, that's the karka. Underneath my left hand is the karka. So the airspace of the lower garden is parallel to the dirt underneath my hand, right? Where you see my nose, right? That area over there, that airspace belongs to him. It's his airspace. And so now you have growing in the middle, you have what? It's in the karka of the pashtus in the karka of the upper guy, right? And it's growing into the airspace of the lower guy. So now, shtei ginos, you have two gardens, zu al gav zu, one on top of the other. The yerek ben tayim, and you have a yerakos growing between them. It belongs to the upper guy. It belongs to the lower guy, right? So now, what do you see? You told me, but the ashras kulyamale pligi. Everyone should agree over here that it belongs to the elyon. It's in the guys. It's in the dirt of the elyon. Everyone should be made. It's the elyon. Yet you see, they argue. Says the Gemara Hasam Kediktani time over there. It's for a different reason completely. Amr Meir says, you know why it belongs to the elyon? Ma'im yitza elyon liteles afarai ein kan yerek. If he would take away his afar, his dirt, it would be a yerek. It would be attached to anything. Amr Yehuda Ma'im yitza tachlein lemale says kinasai afar. And kanyerek. What about the lower person, guys, over here? Let's say you wanted to go ahead and fill up with dirt. You want to have a yerek. So in other words, there it's really a question of jurisdiction rather than when it's being yonik from. Right. So clearly there it's being yonik from the elyon. But since it's been going into the airspace of the tachton, you can view it like in his jurisdiction because he can fill it up. So that's machlokes between Rabbi says it belongs to the upper one, Rabbi Yehuda says it belongs to the lower one. But it has in a normal case, but the ashrish, it won't be maida that you go after where it's rooted and not where the knife, where the branch ends up. You mean to tell me they still don't argue? In other words, I'll show you that they do argue by what? By root. But Tanya, Elon miktsase ba'aretz, miktsase b'chutz laretz. You have an Elon, part of it's in Eretz Yisrael and part of it's in chutz laretz. So what's the halacha of its produce? Tevel v'chulim u'ravim zeh b'zeh. Divrei Rebbe. It's tevel, meaning it's an untithed crop that has not been separated trumas and meiser. The chulin, and it's a crop that's not necessary because it's chulin. They're mixed together. Divrei Rebbe. These are the words of Rebbe. Hagadol b'chiyav chayiv. The part that grows in the chiyav is chayiv. Hagadol b'tur pata. My love that mixes noifay ba'aretz or mixes noifay b'chutz la'aretz. It's not speaking that part of it is in Eretz Yisrael and part of it is in Chutz La'aretz. Look and see Rashi. Yeah, and they're still arguing, right? Rashi says, "Mikzas naifai v'afa pisha kol shvasha ba'aretz." Even though all its root is in Eretz Yisrael, oy b'chutz la'aretz or totally b'chutz la'aretz, almaz lina bas a knife. You see, you go after the knife. In other words, in the Havmin of the Gemara, guys, it's not pshat that it's all growing. You have half growing in Eretz Yisrael and half growing in Chutz La'aretz. And have me the Gemara, it's either all in Eretz Yisrael and all in Chutz La'aretz, and still you have machlokes, right? If it's all in Eretz Yisrael, the one who goes after the knife, it says that it's mixed together, and the one who says that Rabbi Shimon says the part that's a chiyuv is a chiyuv, and the part is pata. So my lab mixes knife of Eretz and mixes knife of Chutz La'aretz, like mixes shwasha ba'aretz and mixes shwasha b'chutz la'aretz. Not what you thought, part and part. So that's the question. If that's the case, if part and part, what's the reason of Reb Shimon Gamliel? My time is Reb Shimon Gamliel. And what's the reason of Shimon Gamliel who said above that one that grows the chiyav is chayiv v'gadol is pater? So he says that it must be speaking. The question is, it doesn't get mixed together. The sap. Rashi, my time the Shimon, Mahu Agadol B'Chiyav Chayav, Lehayinika Shal Shloshim, Milas Sraf B'Chol Pri, B'Shorshei Ovazeh, Milam Sraf, the Pri B'Shorshei Evazeh, Milam Sraf Evazeh. Guys, look at me, please. You have over here, this hand's in Eretz Yisrael, this hand's in Chutz La'aretz, right? Now it goes up, so it says, the part that grows B'Chiyav is Chayiv, and the part that grows B'Chiyav is Pata. If the tree is one place and it's getting nutrients from here and there, it's mixed together. It's Tevel V'Chul mixed together. In other words, we understand Rabbi very well. We don't understand Rav Shimon Gamliel. How could you go ahead and make a chilik? And for the Gemara, there's a tzunma. There is a rock going up somehow in between where we can make a distinction that where these fruits are coming from and these fruits are coming from. That's why. So, my know the difference. My time Rav Shimon Gamliel, the mafsik tzunma, right? That's mafsik. The mafsik tzunma. That you have this summa that's being mafsik, a rock that's being mafsik, distinction between the two roots. My time at the Rebbe, so if you have a rock that's being mafsik, what's the reason? Rebbe, the Hadra Avre, that it gets mixed together as it moves up the tree, even though in the bottom of the tree it's separated, as it moves up the tree, it gets mixed together again. Again, Rebbe says that it's mixed together. No, it's distinct. One's the chiyav pata pata. Masava avira mevalvo, right? One says that avira mevalvo, even though that everything in the shayrish of the karka when it comes out to the avir, it gets mixed up with the avir. That would be Rebbe. Masava avira mevalvo. Masava hayluchu they koy hayluchu. Rebbe Shimon will say it still says in other words. Clearly, you have two roots over here, right? As it goes up the tree, it gets to the airspace. Rebbe says it gets mixed together. Says Rav Shimon, no, it doesn't get mixed together. You go after the root. Since the root is mafsik b'tsunma, that's gadol b'chiyav is chayiv, that's gadol b'petur is potter. So therefore, but it has no bearing on a shiloh of atzitz nakov, enochinami, but atzitz nakov, if the atzitz in the hole went out, it grew, it sprouted into the ground, everyone will be maida that you go after Eretz Yisrael where it grew. Again, and it's unless you see them at CS, I don't understand it. Okay, anyway, the Mishnah said that you have to write a get on. It came out again in Mechuber. We said that if you do it, it works. We gave two pshatim. Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Meya, Rabbi Yehuda postals the get until the ksiva chsim l'shma. Rabbi Yehuda Beseira said you can't write a get on paper that it's possible to erase. V'loyal diftera. Because you're able to go ahead and erase it, and the Chacham said it's kasha. Okay, so we're going to focus on the machlokes and Rabbi Yehuda Beseira and the Chachamim. Now, what are you worried about? Get comes in front of you. It's possible that there was a Tanai written in the get, and now since it's erasable, you got rid of the Tanai, and you have Adam showing up with a signed get without a Tanai, and there really was a Tanai. It was given on a Tanai. So l'chayra, how can it be kosher? How can the Chacham say it's kosher? Rabbi Yehuda Beseira Omer. First, let's identify what difter is, guys. There are three iris. There are three different types of hides. Matzah, chayfa, v'diftera. Matzah, chayfa, v'diftera. Notice klaf is missing. We'll see why in a second. Matzah, kemashmoi. Doloi maliach, udoloi kemiach. Udoloi offits. There are three parts of the process of tanning. Salting, putting flour on it, and putting gall nuts on it. It seems the gall nuts is what makes it that you can't go ahead and make it a counterfeit, because you see the eraser. You take a piece of memory, Steve, if you ever bored, not that ever happened. Hypothetically, if you were learning and you were bored, so you would take a lead pencil, you take a piece of paper, don't listen to this, right? And you would go like this on the paper, right? And then you would erase it. You would see that it's erased. You'd be able to see. That's what gall nuts did. Gall nut blackened the hide to the extent that if there was an eraser, you would see that it was erased. Good. So now matzah is kemashmoy, just like a matzah is not worked. It's just plain flour and water. So too, matzah is the least processed hide. It's one that does not have any. It wasn't salted. It wasn't put flour on, and it was not put gall nuts on. L'may hilchasa. That's l'inyan loitzah Shabbos. That's l'inyan loitzah Shabbos. In other words, the Mishnah and Shabbos, the Mishnayos and Shabbos spend a lot of time going through the various objects of, if you take out what's the shir of Mechaya. We spoke out when we learned Hilchos Shabbos. Haitzah is a malacha grua. You might remember, because you don't change. It doesn't change. Most malachas you're changing something. Right? Think about it. You're planting, you're plowing, you're sowing, you're winnowing, you're cooking, you're writing, you're changing mitzias. What are you doing by Haitzah? It's the same thing. You're just moving it from one area to the other. That's what we spoke out. It's the malachas karua. You don't do anything, and yet you can be chayiv misa, you can be chayiv skila. Correct? It's a good thing to chazal. You heard that, Yosef? It's a good thing to know. So now so you have so what's the shear if you would take out matzah, meaning a hide of matzah? What's the shear? The kamashiro kidiktani Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda kidei lotza mishkal katana. In other words, your weights, you want to keep your weights very smooth, because again, they if they get a chip in it and you lose a little bit, you can cheat a person. They think they're getting a pound, but they would weigh a scale that have a fulcrum. I think that's the right word, fulcrum, right? They have a fulcrum, and if you have a pound over here, you expect a pound over there. But if it's missing a little bit, so we know HaKadosh Baruch Hu is really makpid on this very much. The Torah is makpid very much on keeping mishkalis. So they would wrap this hide around the mishkal and would keep it smooth. It won't lose any of its substance. Okay, that's the shear. And Amar Rabbi, ki river the amount to cover the small weight, the quarter of a papadisa. Chayfa, what's the shear of chayfa? What is chayfa and what's its shear? The maliach, it's salted. However, it didn't have the latter two parts of the process. It didn't have salt on it. It did have salt on it. It did not have flour on it, and was not worked with gall nuts. My hilchasa Shabbos. Or kameya. And they would have a kameya, an amulet, and they would have that's the shear. The amulet was made from chayfa, and the shear to make an amulet, that would be the shear of Eitzah Shabbos. Finally, we get to the third and final, or final this Gemara is diftera, the maliach v'kamiach for loy office, and that's the key, guys. Since it's loy office, you could what? Erase. Since it wasn't worked with the gall nuts, you could erase. My hilchasa, Eitzah Shabbos v'kamashira k'dei lichtav lovas a get, to write a get, like the share of the chachamim. We say it's kasha. That would be the share. Again, this is the share of the chachamim that said about it's kasha. Okay, now what about klaf? What is klaf, guys? Klaf is maliach, kamiach, and ofitz. Correct. So why does it only say 3 and not 4? Look at Rashi. Lichdav lesa get kirabonon the machshri, like the rabbanon that said it's kasha to write a get with that's possible to be counterfeited. Umiu klaf gomer the maliach v'kamiach for ofitz that has all 3 processes. Loishmei ar. That's not called ar. Shemhachi loimoni ba'adayu. They definitely didn't count it because it says there are 3 types of ar. That's not considered a high. It's klaf. B'shirei tanana m'matziyayin klaf k'dei lichdoi parsha katana shebet tefillin. The amount it would take to write small parsha tefillin. Aval diftera ain't a kashla tefillin hilkach shira beget. Diftera is not kashla tefillin, therefore the share is a get, which is a larger amount. Okay. Now the Chacham said it's kosher. Guys, good. Now l'chayr Rabbi Yehuda has a very good taina. Guys, outside. Let's do the l'chayr Rabbi Yehuda has a very good taina. How could you write it on something that you'll have Eidim signed on the bottom, and you can make a change? It's very interesting. There's a halacha that a person should never sign his name on a piece of something, because the person could always go ahead and fill it above. You might remember I told you Maisa Rav Chaim Kanievsky. Rav Chaim, unfortunately, he had a stroke, and I don't know if they did some type of procedure, and they wanted to make sure that he was okay. So he asked him to sign his name, and he made an X. In other words, he would sign his name because what? You possibly could go ahead and write something above it. So I guess he was okay. I guess Rav Chaim, he was okay. He made an X. Because you're not allowed to write. It's incredible. So the chayra, same thing over here. You have a piece of parchment that is you can go ahead and make changes, and you're gonna have Eidim signed to it. What's the svara of the chachamim? In other words, Rabbi Yehuda, we make the most sense. The chacham say it's kosher to use diftera. What's the reason, guys? Good. That's the kasha. Now, man chachamim. Who are these chachamim that said it's mutter? Who are these chachamim that say it's mutter? Who are they? What's the reason in the machshri? And what's the reason? So this gets a little funny, guys. Amar Rebbe Elazar Rebbe Loza Omer. So now, this is good to know. Yossi, listen up. Anytime in Shas it mentions the Amoira Rebbe Loza, it's Rebbe Loza ben Padas. Talmud Muvik of Rebbe Yochanan, it's Rebbe Loza ben Padas. And the Amoira Rebbe Loza is Rebbe Loza ben Shamua. That's the Tana. That's the Tana. So since he's in Eretz Yisrael, this guy's is good to know. The Rebbe never told you this. The difference between an Amoira in Eretz Yisrael and Bavel, in Eretz Yisrael, they had Smicha. So they were called Rebbe. In Bavel, they didn't have Smicha, they were called Rav. Rav Asi, Rav Chista, right? Rebbe Zeru, you have Rebbe Zeru, Rebbe Shlokish, Rebbe Yochanan. These were the Amorim in Eretz Yisrael. So Rebbe Alaza and Rebbe Alaza, the Amorim and the Tana sound exactly the same. So when it's not a Tanoic statement, it's a Gemara statement, it's the Amorim Rebbe Alaza and Padas. And when it's a Tanoic statement, it's usually Rebbe Alaza and Shemua. This course Rebbe Alaza ben Azariah, but usually he'll speak out. Stam Rebbe Alaza is Rebbe Alaza ben Shemua. Usually he'll speak out Rebbe Alaza ben Azariah. He'll say Rebbe Alaza ben Azariah. Like we say, Rebbe Yossi, who's a Stam Rebbe Yossi? Rebbe Yossi ben Kalafta, and therefore we'll speak out Rebbe Yossi Galili. Little things to know, a little pitch of learning. Now, Man Chachamim, I'm Rebbe Alaza. It's Rebbe Alaza, and Padas says it's Rebbe Alaza. It's Rebbe Alaza ben Shemua. The Amar Eidi Mesira Karti. Okay, now, so how does this help us? So in other words, the Tana who says you could write it on a get of diphthera and we're not worried about counterfeiting is the Tana Rebbe Laza who holds Eidei Mesira Karti. Good. So what's going to happen? Who's making the get? The Mesira. She's going to come to Bezdin. She's going to want to get married. You're going to go ahead and say the Eidei Mesira. The Eidei Mesira, before they give it over, are they going to read it? You have to read, right? It's only us who don't read the long print and just make the check. I agree to the above, and really you sold your soul. You don't even realize it, right? But no, they're going to read it. So if there was a mezuyif, if they went ahead and made a change that was tonight, they'll recognize it. Therefore, it's kasha. Therefore, it's kasha. What are you worried about? You worried about what? Making a change? Good. Okay, now. So Rebbe Laza the Amar Eidei Mesira Karti, the Eidei Mesira are making the creases, and therefore what? They'll remember, which would make sense for the next line. Vam Rebbe Laza leihichsha Rebbe Laza el alta, right? To use diphthera, he only permitted right away. He only permitted what? Right away. Good. Good. Why? Because what's going to happen after time? Right? And they would have forgotten about it. So that's when do we say that you can be saimich on a get that was written on diphthera? And we don't have to worry about counterfeiting. If she gets it's signed today, gets divorced tomorrow, Eidei Mesira are going to come. They're going to remember in a day whether it was right. What happens as time goes on? They're not going to remember if it was there or not. So therefore, we're saying that the Gemara is saying that what Rebbe Laza ben Padas is saying this heter of using diphthera loita Tana Rebbe Laza ben Shamua is when it's done right away, and therefore you don't have to worry about an erase tonight. But Masha'en Kain, if it's not right away, then you have to worry. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Rabbi Yochanan ever is of the opinion, Afilu mikan arasar yamin, even up to 10 days. The misa dahavi beitanai mitzvah dikri. They would remember, right? They would remember. In other words, even we're not worried. Okay. In addition, Rabbi Lazar is another tandem. Like Hichsha Rabbi Lazar ben Shamua, Ela begitin. Only by Gitin did he allow you to write on diphthera. Aval b'shtar sharis loi, dichsiv, because b'shtar sharis it says unesatem b'kli charesh, v'man yamdu yomim rabin. That Yirmiyah tells his Talmud Baruch ben Uriah, we're going to Bavel, buy the field of Hashem tells him buy the field of your cousin, make a star that could stand for 70 years, put it in a chasman buried in the ground. So you see, when a star is made to last a long period of time, then what? Then it can't be diphthera, because then you're worried about what? You're worried about a mistake. So therefore, when the Rebbe Lazar says then only by Gitin, right? But by shash staris that are there for collection, and therefore you're not going to take it out for a long period of time. You won't find Eidim Masira, and you will Samech on Eidim Chasima. Eidim Chasima, you could be Messiah above, and therefore what you would not be able to do it. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Afilu B'Shtaris. Afilu B'Shtaris. He's not worried. He's not worried about 10 days. He's not worried about Shtaris. Why? Because Yamu Yom Rabim Mash Mitzvah. You won't have Eidim. So Hasam Eitzah Tova Kamash one. Here it's what it's Begeder Eitzah Tova. It's not a din. It's Begeder what? It's Begeder Eitzah Tova. Okay, we'll stop over here.